Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode of The Outside Noise. I am your host, Taylor Hodges with HottyToddy.com, and I think we can find one or two things to talk about today. You know, there might be one or two things that have happened recently that, a lot of people are talking about and have a lot of noise to make about. So, let's get into it. So, obviously, yesterday was the preliminary injunction hearing for Trinidad Chambliss with his lawsuit against the NCAA. Essentially, the injunction was he was seeking to gain the ability to play next season, and he got it. We're not gonna. I won't say it's too surprising. It kind of always felt like this would be the end result, but I didn't really know how it would get here or some of the other things that kind of happened yesterday. So we're going to look at this in a couple different ways. And we're going to start with the easy one first. So what does this mean for Ole Miss and Trinidad Chambliss? It's pretty obvious. He's going to be the starting quarterback for Ole Miss next season. They're going to be ranked in the top 10 in every major publication preseason poll. Trinidad's going to be a favorite for the Heisman Trophy, right there next to Arch Manning, and trying to think of somebody else off the top of my head, and I can't really think of. So that might be your two big early Heisman candidates, or the guy at Miami, Malachi Tony, I believe is his name, something like that. He might be one. But the point is, Trinidad Chambliss is going to be looked at as a Heisman Trophy favorite and one of the best quarterbacks in the SEC. Ole Miss is going to be highly ranked, and with that is going to come a whole lot of expectations and hopes and goals and aspirations, dreams, blah, 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 of us repeating what we just saw in the 2025 season with Ole Miss going all the way to the college football semifinal. Trinidad, I do think, based on what we saw last season, and especially in the two college playoff games, well, actually, all three of them. I was thinking the Miami and Georgia one, but he did play well against Tulane too, so we can throw that in there. Trinidad does give Ole Miss, I think, the best chance to win. Now, of course, there's 160 other some odd FBS teams with the same goals and dreams, and they're going to try and prevent Ole Miss from doing that. But that's we'll worry about that later. But for now, it's a very good day for Ole Miss, for Trinidad, and their fans. So the next thing we're going to talk about is kind of the NCAA side of this, and there's a few different things to talk about there. First off, what does it mean what does yesterday's outcome mean for the NCAA? And it's a two-sided coin type of situation where it means everything and nothing at the same time. It means everything because, it's a win for the player against the NCAA, getting another year of eligibility. It's an instance of the NCAA's bylaws and procedures and different protocols and reasonings for why they went about making the decisions they did make in Trinidad's case. And so all that's not necessarily a good thing because it's just further weakening the NCAA's credibility and authority over college sports. But none of this is new. All of that was already starting to happen anyways. I'm not shy. I haven't been shy of saying that. This the NCAA is making. They put themselves in this situation. I mean, they spent decades and decades and decades making billions of dollars in profit while telling college athletes how much cream cheese the schools could give them for their bagels. It was ridiculous. And hey, karma does not forget, apparently. And hey, now the NCAA is getting their karmic justice, and I'm again, no sympathy will be found here for the NCAA on that front. Now, as for the specifics of this case, we really finally got a good idea of what the crux of the issue was, or what the issue of the case was. And it essentially boils down to the 2022 college football season and why Trinidad did not play. Trinidad and Ole Miss said that it was because he was not medically able to play. The NCAA doesn't believe that and thinks that it was because he just simply wasn't good enough to get onto the field again with a very a talented Ferris State team. And in the process, it kind of became abundantly clear that the medical illness, that the tonsils and everything that was discussed ad nauseum yesterday, it prevented Trinidad from being fully ready to play a season of football, and that's why and so he wasn't able to play. He believed he was redshirted. Ferris State told him and his mother that they were redshirted, that he was redshirted, not they. He played. So he believed he was redshirted. Ole Miss believed he would have another year of eligibility. And then, but the NCAA didn't. I guess they just didn't believe the reasoning. I guess they maybe thought that the whole tonsil medical illness thing was fabricated, by Trinidad and Ole Miss to gain him another year of eligibility after it was discovered that he's really good. Of course, Ole Miss is would want to have him for another year, and that's kind of what I think the NCAA was like. And then, but the problem for the NCAA is there was evidence that was offered to the NCAA during the waiver request process and the appeals process and all the official processes with the NCAA. The NCAA said that since they could only consider the evidence that was from 2022, and one thing in that evidence, I can't remember if it was a letter or a note or a memo or whatever, but it said that Trinidad didn't play due to football development reasons, i.e. he wasn't good enough to be on the field or play in games, and he didn't. And so that's kind of what I think is one of the things that Trinidad's attorney, Tom Mars, was talking about in the lead up to it, is that there's all this evidence that clearly shows that Trinidad did have a medical illness that prevented him from playing during the 2022 season. But the NCAA chose not to consider that in its rulings and denied Trinidad another year of eligibility based on that. There are a few other little factors in there, like the differences between, Division II, you get 10 semesters, and in Division I, you get the, what is it, 5 years to play 4 seasons, something like that. That came up, and a lot of other stuff was mentioned during the trial. Not trial, it was a hearing. Nobody was on trial. It was a hearing that was, wrong. But overall, it just wasn't a good day for the NCAA. The other big mistake I think they made was with mentioning the Alabama case with Charles Bediako. This is the guy who got drafted, signed a pro contract, never played in an NBA game, and then recently came back to play at Alabama for 5 games before this past Monday, when an Alabama state court judge denied a secondary injunction request after the first judge granted the injunction and then recused himself. A new judge came in and has said, no, you're not eligible to play. And it's two different things, because Trinidad never played professional sports. He played at Ferris State and then he came straight to Ole Miss. There was no in-between time of, getting drafted and signing a contract or anything like that. In which case, then definitely, Trinidad wouldn't have been able to play last season for Ole Miss in that hypothetical. So the judge, I think it was good that the judge kind of called that out in the moment when the defense attorneys were making their closing arguments, and they cited that, and then they tried to kind of circle it back to, there's some differences, but the main thing is we're just following our bylaws as they have been agreed to by the member institutions, like Ole Miss, Alabama, and I don't know how many universities are part of the NCAA. There's 3 or 4 different levels to the NCAA, depending on how you look at it. And then junior college, so thousands probably. Just to kind of wrap this up, it wasn't a good day for the NCAA. I'm not really qualified to sit here and say, oh, that attorney did a bad job and that one did a good one, and whatnot. But there just seemed like a lot of missteps. They didn't call any witnesses. There was no, medical expert of their own to kind of, rebuttal against the testimony that was offered by Trinidad's attorneys in his witnesses. So that, and then that they really didn't do themselves any good by not sticking around for to hear the ruling. It does kind of seem a little archaic, from an old time, different time type of thing, to where you stick around for out of like the respect and everything like that, and it's just the general practice of attorneys to you stick around to hear the hearing. If it was a trial, there would have been an actual defendant there with no attorney, without his attorneys, and you would never see that. So do I think that anything's actually going to come of that? No. I would be surprised if something did, but it's just it definitely just made the NCAA look a whole lot worse. All right, and so with that, I could probably sit here all day talking about this and just kind of poking at all the different holes in the NCAA's argument, and talking about all of their faults and problems, but it's the start of college baseball season. First pitch is in 2 hours from now, from when I'm recording this. So Ole Miss versus Nevada is coming up here at 4:00, and hopefully, it's I don't expect it to be a good game. What I'm looking forward to, and I hope to see, is just, and then I know this is going to be asking a lot in the first game of a baseball game, but just come out looking good and playing well, hitting the ball. We want to see Hunter Elliott pitch like an ace, and we want to see the bats be swing and hit the ball. So, but yeah, we'll find out about that. I'm gonna go ahead and put this all together, and we'll have coverage of the baseball game up on HottyToddy.com later today. Until then, everybody stay safe and enjoy your start of the college baseball season.